when we got into the town to get busy on the streets, I went to this health food store and I got this like thick bread sandwich with scrambled tofu, which is kind of like scrambled eggs, and these vegan sausages on a sandwich. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Good.
Man, it's delicious.
You have to say that though, because you can't be like, no, it didn't taste very nice.
If it was shit, I would have told you, man.
Well, look, what I'll do is when we're playing this out, I'll put an introduction onto it at that point. It's not live or anything, so if there's anything you think, do you know what?
We can do it again.
Yes, whatever you want to do, and when we play it, I'll introduce you. I'll explain who you are and why we're talking to you. This is a dead, boring, simple question that I'm sure you've been asked a million times. But why be vegan? What was it that started it for you?
When I went vegan, man, it was one of the biggest shocks to me and all my friends and family ever, because I didn't even really like animals. You know, for my whole life, I wasn't an animal lover at all.
So straight away then I want to know, when did you do it and why?
Okay, so it was almost 4 years ago now, the day I went vegan, but leading up to me going vegan, I was a personal trainer for nearly 8 years. I got into that after I had cancer, and I suffered obviously when I had cancer. So that was a pivotal point, because I started to understand what suffering really was and how bad it is, and how one of the worst things we can go through is that kind of a feeling. And then when I was a personal trainer, that entire time I was just like any other personal trainer, or most of them at least, telling people to eat a lot of meat and dairy and eggs, you know, just because they're so high in protein, and that's just what personal trainers mainly do. And then one day I was working on a cruise ship, traveling around the world doing lectures on health, and I met somebody who, he made me question whether me eating animal products was good for my health by saying to me that eating animals is bad karma. And I wasn't like a karma guy, believed in that necessarily either, but it made me just think about it. So I tried being vegetarian for a week. Shockingly, I actually felt amazing, and the food was actually good. And when I looked into the health benefits to see if there actually were any, and if I could sustain feeling this good, I learned that there are countless health benefits to not eating animal products, likely to live a longer life, reduce your chances of the biggest killers that humans are faced with today, like heart disease and cancers and diabetes, obesity.
See, you say all that, and it sounds great, and you kind of think, well, if that's the case, then why isn't everyone doing it?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. So after that, I stayed vegetarian for the health benefits, and then I actually watched a documentary called Earthlings, which shows all the ways that humans exploit animals for food, clothing, entertainment, medical testing, and all that. And it was actually like a real life horror movie, and it disgusted me. And even though I wasn't an animal lover, I'm definitely not somebody who hates animals and wants them to suffer and die if they don't have to. And so I asked myself the question, if we don't need to kill and eat animals to survive and thrive, what do we do this to them for? And I thought there must be a good answer, because most people say they love animals. So I looked, and I learned that the best justifications we've got are taste, habit, tradition, and convenience. And they actually didn't seem like good enough justifications for even a single scream that I'd heard. So I stayed vegetarian for the animals, and then soon later I realized that dairy, eggs, all animal products are just as cruel as meat. It didn't make sense to be against some types of...
Oh, come on, James, you can't be serious. So eggs, now you can correct me, obviously, eggs...
I'm about to.
I know, I can tell you.
Let me tell you about dairy.
Well, hold on, let me ask you, when it comes to the likes of cheese, for example, or milk, there will be people screaming at their radio right now saying, well, look, you don't have to kill a cow to get milk. You don't have to then kill a cow to get cheese. So why is that cruel, or as cruel as eating the meat, their flesh?
I can totally understand that, because most people have no idea about the dairy industry, just like I didn't when I started learning about it. The reason why the dairy industry is at least as cruel, if not maybe even more cruel than the meat industry. So firstly, for a cow to give milk, she has to be pregnant. For that to happen, a human will shove their arm into the cow's anus and inject her vagina with bull semen, so they forcibly impregnate her. They do that on an apparatus that is commonly known as a rape rack. And then after a 9-month pregnancy, like a human, she gives birth. They separate the mothers from her babies almost straight away, because they don't want the babies drinking her milk, the milk that's made for them. The baby boys who don't produce milk, they're seen as a waste product, and they are sent to the slaughterhouse. At the slaughterhouse, they'll be shot in the head. This is what happens in this country. They're shot in the head with a bolt gun. It pierces through their skull into their brain, and then they get their throat slit. And the baby girls have the same fate as their mother. they are forcibly impregnated as soon as they're old enough. They're hooked up to milking machines every day. This process is repeated over and over for 5 to 7 years, and then they're so severely used and abused, basically, that they are also sent to the same slaughterhouse as their babies at about 5 to 7 years old, and in nature they could live to 25, 30 years. So,
really?
Yeah, man.
25, 30, and the way they're bred for their milk or their meat, it's obviously for their meat, it's much, much shorter. There will be people listening, James, that will say, well, look, you know what? For want of a better phrase, there's a food chain, or there is a hierarchy that some people see, and many people take great pride in seeing themselves at the top of that, and therefore, well, maybe it is a selfish thing to think, but a lot of people think, well, I can eat what I want. It's not illegal. It's not against the law.
That's true, and not long ago it wasn't against the law to keep slaves. Not long ago it wasn't illegal for men to own their women, and just because these things were legal doesn't make them good things. Just because we've been eating meat and killing animals for food for a long, long time doesn't make it a good thing.
It's the habit thing you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and tradition, it's cultural as well, but culture isn't more valuable than their lives. We've got to look at it from the victim's point of view, and there is a food chain out there. A lion kills a gazelle, but we have really separated ourselves from nature in many, many ways. And when we have a choice, we can go to a supermarket and choose what to eat, and we can either choose food of violence, oppression, and killing, or choose food of kindness and peace and respect. I think it should be a very easy choice for us when we are so privileged to be able to make a choice between those two. It would seem to me that as a civilized society that we claim to be, we should always try to choose the path to least harm, and by far that is the vegan path.
I might be about to upset you, I probably will, and I'm not trying to, but...
You probably won't.
I should have said when we arranged this interview, or at the very beginning, my dad used to be a butcher. This is years ago. And the reason I say that to you is I want to know, when you see people eat meat, or you hear them talk about animals as just something, a produce for them to consume, does that frustrate you? Does it upset you? How does it make you feel?
That's a good question. First of all, your dad, a slaughterhouse worker, someone who owns a dairy farm, none of these people I see as my enemy. Not at all. I wasn't a bad person when I ate animal products. I was misinformed, and most people are. Most people believe they need to eat meat for protein, or they need dairy for calcium. Most people think that animals don't matter as much as humans, and even if you do agree with that, that's fine. But what we all can agree on is that it's wrong to cause unnecessary harm to animals. So then we have to look at, well, what is unnecessary harm? Someone who works at a butcher, for example, they probably believe that they're doing a good service. They're feeding families and this and that. But again, there are other ways to feed families with vegan food. In fact, we'd feed far more mouths if we were feeding humans the plant food that we feed to fatten up the animals before they get killed. We could end world hunger over and over. But that aside, I think that if we just continuously to look at it from the victim's point of view, and we think about these animals as individuals, with their own heart, with their own mind, with their own family even, and their own life that they want to live, I think the core issue of it is that we believe humans are so superior to every other species, even though we are just one species of millions of animals. We think we are so superior that we value a fleeting taste sensation over their entire right to live their life. And it's called speciesism. So before, when white people had black people as slaves, that was racism. They viewed them as less than them, as inferior. And we've come a long way with that, but with speciesism, we got a long way to go, man. And the difference is that they're covered in feathers, scales, wings, or fur. It's not a skin color thing, but it's still a prejudice based on their appearance. Because when we try to find the trait, if I ask you right now, what trait do these animals possess or don't possess that justifies us killing them just for a snack?
There will be people, they'll question what you're saying, because they will say that animals and humans are not equal.
That's
and
fine.
For a variety of different reasons. Obviously, some of them are very, very obvious. I want to move on.
Well, like what though? Like what? What do you think is what are the significant things?
These aren't necessarily how I feel.
No, that's cool.
If I'm totally honest with you, I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan. But as I get older, I do start to question what I eat more, especially in the last couple of years, because I am an animal lover. I have 2 dogs. This is very cheesy, but I get very attached to them, and I guess I am very attached to them. And as I get older, I question the difference between them and the likes of a cow,
sure,
or a chicken,
that's a good start.
Or whatever. It still hasn't moved me at this point beyond that, and I think part of the reason for that is I don't go to a slaughterhouse.
Sure,
absolutely. I don't go to a farm. I go to a shop, and when I buy meat, it's almost like it's not really an animal. There's a disconnect there because I don't see the process. I don't see what happens to get it to where it is.
Absolutely.
But I just because I know we're pushed for time, I want to ask you about another element of this, and that is in terms of your diet and your daily life, because I would assume that it's quite tricky to be a vegan in that there's not as many options of food you can eat, and I take it things you can wear as well.
It's the funniest thing about being vegan is that when you go vegan, you cut out a few foods, but you actually add so many.
You have to say that though.
I don't, man. You ask any vegan.
Because if you sat there and you said it's the most difficult thing in the world to be
all
vegan.
you need to do. All right, I'll explain why.
Okay.
First things first. Every food that you already love, there is a vegan recipe. You like lasagna? We've got vegan lasagna. We've got vegan spaghetti bolognese.
Is that with tofu?
Sometimes it's tofu.
I tried tofu once and it was disgusting.
Do you know what? I tried tofu once and it was disgusting too, but then I tried it again and I loved it. There's lots of different ways of making tofu. I've had some meat that I didn't like as well. You know, I've had some pretty bad kebabs in my time. So we got a vegan version of everything, man. Cheesecakes and burritos and nachos. We got vegan cheese, we got vegan meat, we got vegan ice cream.
Is it more expensive?
It can be, and it depends. It actually depends. So you could, for example, buy soy milk, and it might be $1 or what do you do? Euros, pounds? A pound. I travel a lot. It might be £1 or $2 more. Or you make your own almond milk, and it will be actually cheaper.
Oh, so, come on! You want me to make my own milk now?
Oh, it's so easy, man.
No, but once again, you have to say that.
Okay.
I guess the reason I'm asking you this
is
there like a class divide when it comes to being vegan? Is it easier to be a vegan if you have some money?
Well, let me just finish on your last question. So there are, if you want recipes, you go vegan breakfast recipes, there's millions. Vegan lunch recipes, there's millions. You Google that. You've got all those foods that you already loved, you've got the vegan versions of them. Then you've got all the vegan recipes that don't try to resemble animal products at all, and there's millions of those recipes as well. So now it actually opens up a whole new world of eating that you probably haven't explored much before. Now, when it comes to the class thing, just by default, most of the poorest countries are vegan by default because meat and cheese, they're actually quite expensive foods. Whereas rice, beans, potatoes, oats, pastas, they're the cheapest foods in the supermarket. There's a great book called How to Eat Vegan on $4 a Day that if anyone wants to do it cheap, you can. But I eat very cheap vegan food. I start my day with oats for breakfast with a few berries. I might have brown rice with avocado and tofu, sushi for lunch. Maybe I'll have a big plate of roast potatoes with some beans or something and some salad for dinner. That's just a typical easy day for me.
Christmas isn't that far away. What would you have for your Christmas dinner or your Thanksgiving dinner if you do?
We'll probably have at my house, my mum, dad and my brother are all vegan. So we're going to probably have like vegan sausages. We'll probably have a vegan roast. It'll probably look very similar to what you're having, but it'll be animal cruelty free.
You say your family are vegan as well. Is that a result of you or?
Well, I was vegan first, but I think it wouldn't be a result of me. It would be more a result of what I showed them.
Your influence.
The influence of the documentaries they watch. They watch a documentary called Earthlings, which shows the ethics of why we should be vegan. They watched the documentary Forks Over Knives, which is based on the largest study ever conducted on the relationship between nutrition and disease, which the bottom line was that the optimal amount of animal products in the human diet is 0. And then they watch Cowspiracy, which shows the environmental devastation caused by animal agriculture. And so all of that combined were very strong reasons for them to all go vegan.
I want to ask you one of my final questions, and I assume you're going to be totally honest.
Okay, good.
Given that, 4 years now you've been vegan?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have eaten before that you now do miss? in terms of taste, putting aside the cruelty?
Okay, can I be 100% honest with you?
Yes.
I'm shocked at how much I don't miss the meat that I used to eat, because I used to eat meat 3 times a day. But I tell you, there are a couple of foods that I thoroughly enjoyed that I don't ever eat now. I used to love eating ribs, and I used to love eating lamb chops. But by far, I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark. I feel so good being vegan, man. I've aligned my actions with my values. There's more peace inside of me, there's more compassion, there's more respect. Life is richer, and it, by a million miles, far outweighs any taste I used to enjoy from eating the products of violence and killing.
You make quite a compelling argument. There might be some people that listen to this and think, you know what, I've decided to change what I want to eat and put in my body. And there will be people, as I'm sure you've come across before, that say, you know, I disagree, and it's my right to eat what I want to eat. You have made, well, your life has kind of become a bit of an icon in terms of being a vegan and what that involves. So why did you decide that was the route you were going to take your life down? Because it's one thing to be a vegan,
sure,
and then it's another thing to do what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, Einstein said it well. He said, those that have the privilege to know have the duty to act. And these animals, they cannot speak up for themselves. They have a voice, they do speak, but not in a language that we understand, and their screams and cries basically fall on deaf ears. So for the people that are out there who do value their life, who do see animal cruelty as unjust and want to speak up for them, I believe that every single person should. We should all, nobody should stay silent in the face of oppression and violence. And as somebody who is very privileged, I have no one to worry about. I'm a very, you know, I'm a very lucky human. It's the least I can do to dedicate at least a portion of my time in my life to speaking up for those who can't do it for themselves.
You did take it, and you do take it beyond that, a 365-day vow of silence.
Yeah.
For the animals. And I take it this was to create awareness and make people think about it.
Sure.
It's quite extreme though.
It is extreme, man, but you know what's more extreme? Saying that you love animals and you're against animal cruelty, and paying somebody to mutilate and torture and slaughter an animal for you for a food and product that you don't need and that you're better off without. And it is extreme. It was an extreme action, a year-long vow of silence. I've also been tattooed for 24 hours straight to raise awareness for animals as well. But what is happening to animals is extreme. They're literally getting their heads cut off. Their babies are being separated from mothers. The amount of victims is over 3 trillion every single year. Not one of them needs to go through this, and I just think that desperate times call for desperate actions. I would rather not do these things, man, but I would want someone to speak up loudly for me if it was me in their situation.
I know I'm going to come back to something we touched on earlier, because you keep, every time you reference, you know, slaughter, you talk about torture and pain, and there is definitely a perception. For example, we talk about eggs that are free range,
sure,
and there is that perception among people that do eat meat that the meat you eat, those animals, when they are killed, when they are slaughtered, yes, they are killed and their lives end at that point, but
absolutely,
it's done so in a humane way.
Yeah, of course, I'd like you to think that. I'd ask you to watch the footage, man. I'd ask you to watch the footage.
I know, but I'm asking you because not everyone will watch the footage.
Okay, then I'll explain it.
And there were people saying, well, look, you know what, James, you make a very valid argument, and I understand what you're saying, but surely, you know, all the food organisations around the world, they wouldn't let animals be slaughtered in a unhumane and painful way.
I hear your point. I would ask them, what would be a good way to end somebody's life that doesn't want to die? Is there a humane way to kill someone who doesn't want to die? The word humane means to show compassion. And when we're talking about slaughter, really we're talking about murder. It's the same action, just to a different species. So think about it as if we were talking about humans. Can you humanely murder someone? If I kill someone in their sleep and they don't feel a thing or see it coming, can I say that that was a humane murder? Will I get off from my murder charges because I did it humanely? Now, obviously, torturing someone before you murder them is worse. But murder is still murder, and taking someone's life, taking their most precious gift, is one of the most cruel things that we can do. Now, when we come back to animals, it is the exact same story. Let's say that you somehow found a place that was raising animals for food, and they gave them belly scratches all day long. They were the happiest animals you've ever seen. And then you killed them in a way that they didn't even feel a thing, which never, ever happens these days. But let's say that it did. Well, let's say it was sometime in the future.
Because lots of people will say that there are humane ways.
Okay. So then I would say, let's say that you killed them and they didn't feel a thing. You have robbed an individual of their life. You have murdered or slaughtered. Same thing, different species. So let's use the word murder because that's really, it's basically what it is.
It's a bit more dramatic than slaughtered.
Do you know, isn't that interesting that just because, that's why slaughter is a nice word for them to use, especially when you put the word humane in front of it, makes good people feel much better about their choices. Humane slaughter, that doesn't sound that bad, but really, I mean, it's no different from murder. We're taking the life of somebody who doesn't want to die against their will. We'll use slaughter if you want. So humane slaughter, how do you humanely kill someone who doesn't want to die? Now, when we kill these animals, we're robbing them of their most precious gift, their life. They want to just live just like we do, man. They want to just live. They want to eat. They want to breathe. They want to sleep. They want to have fun with their friends. They want to do whatever they want to do. Raise a family, enjoy the sunshine. Whatever it is they want to do, that's what they want to do. That's their life. And it's not up for us. It's not up to us to rob that of them just for a taste, when we could have easily eaten countless other foods that are actually healthier for us. So I think using the word humane in front of slaughter is probably the biggest oxymoron in the English language that I can think of. And when you put it to human context, it's quite easy to see that that really doesn't make any sense.
You make a good argument. You've given me a lot to think about. If you want more on James, jamesaspey.com.au is the website. I could talk to you all night, but I think we have to leave it there.
No worries, man.
But thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Can I say one quick thing?
Yes.
If anybody is interested in trying going vegan and seeing how they feel on it, the recipes, things like that, there's a great website called Challenge 22. It's totally free. You sign up, you join a group with a mentor for free. There's registered dietitians. They send you recipes, everything you need. 22-day free vegan challenge. It's challenge22.com. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.